Welcome to the Vivid webinar this afternoon. Be proactive with Ops Analytics, leverage your Splunk investment. This is brought to you by J9 Technologies, and I'm your host and moderator, Mark Led, and I'm the BSM SIG leader. Today's speakers will be Clay Roach, who's the CTO for J9 Technologies. Principal consultant. Go. This is what the question box looks like. So if you'd like to just put questions in there, we'll ask them towards the end of the session. So with no further ado, I shall hand over to Clay and his team.
All right, great. Thanks a lot, Mark, and thanks everybody for joining today. So what we're going to do today is present the HP Ops Analytics solution, and with it combining with Splunk data. So, you know, we as an integrator and HP partner come across a lot of customers that have a variety of tools, and you know, one of them that always comes up is Splunk. Splunk is, as you know, if you already use it, it's a great tool. It's got a great, you know, it's got a hardcore following. Every place I go into, there's somebody walking around with one of those Splunk T-shirts. It's got, you know, very good. They have very good support. The dashboards are actually pretty decent looking as well. And you know, it's very easy to adopt. The bar is very, very low to start collecting, you know, get it installed and start collecting data and be very, have a lot of value out of that data. You know, what we've started to see is that the Splunk use cases have started to extend, you know, farther and farther outside of just enterprise IT into the lines of businesses as well. So, you know, I know that, you know, I think Splunk is one of the tools, at least in the IT sphere, that has really brought about that big data solution to us in a way that's actually very usable. And, you know, and we often, you know, the reason why we're looking at it today is because it's a great in terms of coexistence strategy with existing tools. You know, if you've been using it for a while, there's, you know, I guess the big thing with Splunk is that it is very expensive. You know, I've talked to a few folks out there who are ultimately having to make the decision of, do they continue to expand their Splunk, or, you know, are they, you know, their budget for FTE goes down considerably as well. I mean, you can, you know, you can start to chip away at your own team at some level by, you know, the amount of the cost that actually is to continue to grow and maintain Splunk. And, you know, part of that as well is, you know, what we'll call kind of the hidden cost, and we'll go into this a little more detail later, but you know, the amount of data you're consuming is also, you know, you're required to buy and manage the equivalent hardware as well. So, you know, one of the things we'll get into a little bit is the OPSA advantage in that area. You know, the original design goal was around log search. It does that, you know, exquisitely. Very easy to use, you know, to build up, you know, queries, save them off. It becomes pretty second nature. I guess the only, you know, another downside is that it's fairly reactive. There's you know, very little in terms of either you know, metric, you know, analysis or predictive analysis. So, you know, what we're starting to see are our IT organizations looking for a little bit more than what Splunk provides out of the box. Log searching is great. The challenge there is the data store itself. OPS-A actually has the ability to store up to 5 times more log data with its compression capabilities than what Splunk is able to. So any area where you can combine the two tools kind of in a hybrid approach, you're going to find that the actual storage cost of storing data in OPS-A is actually very significantly less. OPS-A uses the Vertica data store underneath, very powerful columnar store database that's market leader in that space, and very adept at running in search queries, and the performance is very impressive. So the other part of that OPS-A brings is a more detailed log analysis. So while you can go into Splunk and pick variables and add them into the query, that's really where most of it ends with Splunk. So having an additional ability to go through and have the tool actually be your eyes effectively, and look through and pour through the log data, look for trends, spot specific parameters that are occurring frequently, look at rare messages and so on, and bubble those up, so that it's less brute force searching, and you're actually more the OPS-A tool actually does a lot of that work for you. As well, the OPS-A will do more predictive analytics. The predictive analytics is very powerful. It's adjusts to seasonality. It has a number of different ways that it parses the log data and other metric data for that matter. Splunk does have a predictive capability, but it's comparatively, if you've looked at it, it's a fairly linear calculation, and it doesn't, it's in order to get value out of it, there's still a bit of manual work to set up, screens and so on. Whereas OPS-A has this is a core feature, and a very quick out-of-the-box solution for that. And the last one is anomaly detection. So, OPS-A is using some of the underlying technology that HP has developed over a number of years to spot anomalous conditions, log files that, entries that are abnormal or rare, et cetera. It'll pick those out and alert on them proactively, so that you really get out of just that reactive mode, and you let the tool solve some of these and spot some of these problems for you ahead of time. So these were some quotes and some, this is actually from another system integrator that uses Splunk quite a bit. The thing that it does really well, that OPS-A does really well, is that root cause analysis. So if you look down at over far left, we have the log analytics, where it's actually looking at hundreds of thousands or millions of log file entries and spotting and pulling out the ones that are important for additional analysis, and those can be played back in real time. The other thing that OPS-A does is it has a notion of topology. So, while you may find an issue in Splunk, I think one of the nice things about OPS-A is that you can very quickly see and understand the impact. So, the OPS-A uses or it can actually integrate with existing BSM to be able to incorporate information about hosts and understand those relationships, which we'll get into a little bit more. The next one is, more predictive analytics. This is the becoming less reactive. In other words, being able to look at trends of metrics over time. OPS-A will look at this. I call this more of automated baselining, but a fairly sophisticated automated baselining. It'll draw a sleeve around a metric over time, and then deviations outside of that can cause an alert, or you can run a script, or you can take a number of different other actions. So one of the questions I want to have for the audience right now, and you'll see this up in your as a polling question. Like to understand, what are some key challenges or limitations you're experiencing, areas that could be, improved, or ones you're getting pressure either from the organization or from lines of business, either cost, additional log analytics capabilities, dashboards. One of the things we've heard is that dashboards are the first iteration is pretty easy, and then there's continual need for updates, and a lot of those updates are, manual in nature, and, your Splunk admin ends up spending a lot of time and effort updating the dashboards. The next, predictive analytics, metric correlation, anomaly alerting. In other words, having more of that going more of a proactive stance. And then the last one, if you're not using Splunk, it'd be good to know if you're considering OPSA can also be a full alternative. It does all the same log searching capabilities. Today we're focused obviously on just if you're using Splunk data for log collection today, then being able to use that in your OPSA.
If people would like to poll or provide their answers for the poll, we'll give that a couple of moments. Okay, we'll give that a couple more seconds. I think there's a few people still voting. Okay, it seems to have stabilised. So if we can close the poll, and then the results, there's about 50% not using Splunk, 28% have a cost as the key challenge, 17% have predictive analytics and metric correlation as a key challenge, and the rest, the 6% on log analytics. There's nobody thinks that the dashboards are a key challenge. So over to you, Clay.
Okay. Great, thanks a lot, Mark. So I'm wondering, I feel like I kind of wish I had another question up there, which is out of the those not using Splunk today, is it because of the cost? Perhaps we can find that another time, but it's interesting though. So about 50% are not using it today. Once again, OPSA is a great drop-in, very cost-effective solution that is a direct competitor with Splunk. We actually just finished J9 and along with HP, pretty sizable POC where we went head-to-head, and we beat out Splunk on a number of different use cases, and actually came out the winner on the other side. So in a shop that are using Splunk today. So the technology has evolved. Splunk's been around for a long time, I think since about 2006. Not to say that their technology is dated, but it's there's always room for improvement in the decade that's come since they were originally around. So I want to start out and just go through some of the key. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out too, for those that aren't using Splunk, since it's 50% of the group here, Splunk isn't required as a data collector for operations analytics. You can also use the HP ArcSight logger and the number of other log collection sources to feed into OPSA. But we'll be talking a lot about Splunk today, but just be aware that there are a number of ways to get the data in besides Splunk.
Right, that's a good point. There's and that list is ever evolving. So if you're using Logstash or some of the other ways to collect log data, then the extensibility of OPSA is progressing very quickly into supporting those integrations as well. So really, the idea is throw any sort of data at it, and you should be able to leverage the analytics power of OPSA independent of what the source is. We'll actually show we have an integration with Dynatrace data where we're pulling in APM transactional data into OPSA as well, which we're then using upstream for analytics. So it doesn't all have to be log data either. There's a number of different there's all kinds of data feeds that are possible. Thanks, Jonathan. So the first one will go into more detail in the demo in a sec, and I'd like to spend more time on that. So I'm going to brief through a few of these slides to get onto that. The first one is log analytics. So this is I'd say killer feature number one, and probably the most important from my standpoint. This is the being able to see the main issue in spite. It's kind of the forest and trees issue, right? So you can see issues stand out a little more than just trying to sort through log files manually or trying to create dashboards for specific types of issues. Once again, Splunk's really great at creating a dashboard for a known issue if you have one that's plopping up with errors or warnings or what have you, but not so good at determining the unknown issues. So things that are anomalous that you're not used to, and being on the operation side, those are always the ones that come to bite you in the end. So there's a lot of capabilities built in on this log analytics side, and the way that it works is actually it uses a couple of different methods, and part of that is also via end user interaction. So for instance, if you have a particular issue that occurred at a time, then you can move the little slider to the problem time area, and that actually informs OPSE to analyze events and log messages during that time period, and further to look at more anomalous events. So that can actually help you bubble up events that happen when that particular problem was occurring. It also it'll raise the importance based off of severity, specific keywords like exception. It also looks at repetition, seasonality, and user feedback. You can go into the log messages and like a log message, and then it basically tells that OPSE that that's important, and it should continue to look at that over time. Second key feature I briefed on a little bit earlier was topology. Topology is, it's nice to be able to easily visualize the association between all the endpoints. So, there's a way to tag various log files and elements and fields within the log file to develop a topology that makes more sense to the IT organization or the line of business. It gives you the ability to more quickly visualize and understand impact. So if you have an error or an outage or a heap spirals out of control, then can very quickly get to an understanding of which applications and which part of the systems would be impacted. One of this use cases is around, especially in large VM environments, understanding which VM is connected to which other VM, and if you have an issue in one, where it can end up cascading. The other killer feature is the predictive analytics. So you can see here, this happens pretty quickly, right? This is it'll start to establish and refine these baselines in even just a few hours of starting to collect metrics. So this is in other words, you don't have to wait a week or two or three before you get these, and it continually adjusts these over time to make them more accurate. So, this is an automatic process, right? There's no manual steps here. It does it automatically out of the box. I believe Splunk has an ability to do this to some degree, but you have to set it up on a per metric basis. Once again, there's manual steps there. So you end up spending a lot of time doing work that's technically, necessary, but in terms of actually, has less business value than what you'd want to have. So. The other thing that's pretty cool is you can combine multiple metrics together into the same chart, which is nice to do, more of a comparative analysis. One of the things we noted when we were going through, we set up our demo for the system, is just how quick the integration is. It's actually kind of brain dead simple. I mean, you basically just, there's this little workflow of 5 steps where you point it to your Splunk instance. And then you set up a few parameters here. So for instance, the severity field of the log file is chosen out of that, and you can see the blocks over to the left-hand side, date and time, severity, host. Those are the ones that are defined by Ops Analytics, and the data in the raw data coming in from Splunk. So you can check the checkbox on which one of those is important for severity. Next to last feature is the anomaly alerting. So as OPSA is collecting data, it will look at all the metrics over time. It draws this sleeve around it, and therefore anything that falls in and above the baseline will alert. So this is really important because there's cases where a lot of times thresholds are set at a max threshold. So as long as it doesn't exceed the max, then great. If it exceeds the max, then send off an alert. Sometimes a low level, of activity, like not seeing users coming into the website, and that that traffic falling off, that could actually be a problem or an anomaly as well. And so this makes it really easy to automatically create those baselines and attach either email events, SNMP, or running an automated script in case you fall out of that baseline. The next one is being able to create metrics and dashboards very quickly from Splunk log data. So as OPSA is collecting data, it basically goes in and highlights keywords, and it'll allow you to chart these very quickly over time. And Jonathan will spend a little more time going into that during the demo. And second poll question is coming up. So this is just, have you, any of you out there installed, evaluated, already using Ops Analytics today, or are you considering it for the future?
Okay, so if we can open up the poll. I'll give people a few minutes to vote on that. So have you installed, evaluated, or are you already using Ops Analytics? Terry, I'm not seeing the numbers, not seeing the poll change.
Okay, it looks like about 74% have voted, so why don't we go ahead and close the poll, and I'll share the results with everyone. And you should be able to see the results now.
I can, yes. So we're about 48%, so 50% no, they're not using or have installed or evaluated, 32% in future plans, and 20% yes. So back to you, Clay.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Mark. Okay, so we're going to go into the demo now. So I just want to give you an idea of the architecture we have. So we have a application. It's called Easy Travel. We're actually using it. It's a demo app just to use to simulate, problem scenarios, and we have that data flowing via log files into Splunk. So we're picking up all of the JVM and .NET log files for this application, multi-tiered application, and sending those log files over to Splunk. And then that is integrated into Operations Analytics. We also have APM data coming through as well. So we're actually pulling data into Dynatrace, which is an APM monitoring product. Doing more bytecode level instrumentation and introspection within the JVMs and .NET CLRs, and that data is flowing via our J9 accelerator. We're pulling that data, for instance, transaction data, out of Dynatrace, and also pulling that into Ops Analytics. So the nice thing I wanted to show here is that you don't have to put everything in Splunk. In other words, you can you utilize that very 5-to-1 data compression capability that Ops Analytics has on highly granular data. So we're pulling very high grain, not just log files, but specific metrics that are being collected across hundreds of JVMs and applications, and putting that also in Ops Analytics, and that allows you to combine and see a lot of that data in real time. So that's what the demo environment looks like, and with that I will switch over and let Jonathan drive a bit.
Okay, thanks, Clay. All right, so I'm going to start off with showing you, this is Operations Analytics. We've got a dashboard right here for our Easy Travel demo environment that Clay mentioned. The part I want to highlight first is the scenario where we had a memory utilization issue with Easy Travel. On the business back end, we were seeing the utilization.
Sorry to interrupt. Clay, could you make the screen a little bit larger?
How's that looking?
Yes, it's getting there.
If you need, I can also be the presenter. We're kind of looking at the same thing, so. Feel free to switch over to me if you want to try that. This is Jonathan.
Oh, that's much better.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is a memory leak condition, and you could have a situation where you've got log analytics and you're looking for a specific situation, and then after the fact you find out, okay, I want to start monitoring memory utilization, or maybe this is something you're already keeping an eye on. You've already got it on the dashboard. One might come before the other, but the end result is you've got one place where you're able to see the metrics along with the log analytics. And what the log analytics is the key to this scenario here, where we know the problem time. We can see that the heap usage was going up at this time. And when I mouse over it here, I can see this is about 8 o'clock p.m. on 10/7. So what I want to do in log analytics is, like Clay mentioned before, we've got this problem time slider. So I'm going to set the problem time accordingly. And what that does is it will kind of set a range around what log messages to focus in on. So here in this dashboard overall, we've got a time range of 4:30 p.m. On 10/7 all the way to 9:13 a.m. on 10/8, and that's resulting in 132,000 log messages. But because we've identified the problem time, it's zeroing in into a time range that's smaller to follow up these messages. And so let me just there's just a lot going on in this window. So the circles are indicating logs. So these messages are coming from logs. There are 15 significant messages that we're going to drill in to look at. And these message groups are, there's a lot of messages that get repeated, and then there's some element of variability within them. So Ops is able to group those messages together. So out of those 132,000 messages, it grouped together about 4,000 of them. And then related to this problem time, there are 15 significant messages. So the N is telling me that it's new, R is rare, how high it is vertically in here has to do with how significant OPSA thinks the message is. But when I drill into this, I'm going to be able to see all these messages here. So I'll just click on this one in particular, and we'll drill in. All right. So now I've drilled into this this message, and so what we can see is that it's bubbling up for us that we have a Java heap space message. It was a very high severity, so obviously that's going to play a factor in it. The time at which the message came in is going to be a factor. It was 7:55 p.m. There may have been keywords that were part of the message, like exception, that could go into the factor. How often the message is seen, the repetition, the seasonality, those are factors. And if I had previously liked this, which I had not, this was not a manually liked message, but if I had, that would increase the chances of it showing up here. But it found 15 significant messages. This is just one of the 15, and because I clicked on that one, that's what it drilled in, and I've got the message details here. Of course, we can see that there were 2 occurrences of this message in this time frame. We can see the severity of some of those other messages, so we could click on those. But that's really the power of operations analytics, is being able to have those messages bubble up for you so that you can analyze a subset of messages and help you zero in on the root cause. Okay, and now I'm gonna go back to the dashboard, and I want to point out that there is a filter that's going on here with what devices that log messages are associated with. So this can be, a group of servers that are supporting an application, like Clay mentioned with the topology, or it could maybe just be one host. In this case, we're filtering down to messages for just one host. So all these counts of messages and what we're drilling into are just related to that one host. So that's log analytics. I want to show you a little bit more about how we came to getting these log messages in here from Splunk. So the setup that's involved with that is we first have to set up our Splunk instance, and that's pretty simple. We're just basically pointing at the DNS or IP of the Splunk instance with the port numbers, entering in the credentials, and you've got your Splunk instance connected to OPSA. There's really not much more to it than that. The next part of it is the mapping of the files, of the log messages in Splunk to OPSA. So there are 2 things, 2 variables that need to be considered for the mappings. The source type and the source. So for those of you that are familiar with using Splunk already, you're going to be familiar with source type and source. But the source type is basically what kind of a grouping of messages within Splunk. So if you have a Splunk forwarder agent installed on the server, you might have Splunk automatically categorizing the log messages into source types, so it's grouping those messages together. Maybe you've configured a drive mapping to those log files and you've hard-coded the source type. I mean, it depends on how you've implemented Splunk, but it's essentially a grouping of log messages, and then you have source, and the source is going to be the individual log files. And the way that, so depending on how you've implemented that, you're going to configure operations analytics to use those. So you can use wildcards in the mapping. So if you've got a group of log files that are, they have a source type of business backend, you could do business backend star, and then all of the log files that are payment backend star.log. So you can kind of, you're grouping one or more log files together of a similar formatting so that you can map those files. Now, the next thing that we're going to do that I want to show you is, all right, so now that we know what our source and our source type is for the one or more logs that we want to pull from Splunk, then we'll configure this. Let's see. I'm going to point out one other thing. So OPSA is also able to identify where a significant source of log files is coming from with Splunk, and it might automatically prompt you to configure that source type. So in the case of a source type of OPSA log, so let me show you this example on the Splunk side. So I'll do source type OPSA log. It was dash log, sorry. All right, and then for that source type, we've got a bunch of different log files, and why don't we just pick, let's see here. OPSA topology tasks, and this is a pretty basic workflow that we're stepping through. So it's identified that the source and the source type match. We've got some entries that are in that log, and the next thing it's going to do is automatically separate out for us the different columns in the log. So one of the things that it did that's really nice is that it already configured the date and time automatically for us. It recognized the date and time. There's nothing we have to do there. The next thing is the severity. So it's identified the column for severity as column number 6, T6 here. We see we've got some log files with info severity. So we need to just map that so that OPSA knows how that severity is going to come across. So when I click in the field, it's going to automatically populate any of the severities that it's found in the first few hundred lines, I think. So it found info, so we know that's there, and we'll assume that I'm familiar enough with this log that I know what some of the other severities are, and some of them are medium and maybe high, so we'll configure a couple of those. And if you've got multiple for medium, maybe you do a medium so whatever. And then, so you can have multiple associations there, and then we'll just do OK. And then the last thing we need to do is just tell OPSA what part of the message is going to be for the message text. So we'll pick T3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And it'll automatically group these together into the message text. We do OK. Next, configure any additional fields that we need to preview save. That's basically it. Now we're getting log messages into Operations Analytics, and the log analytics functionality, this is going to start working automatically. There's nothing we have to do additionally for that log analytics to work. Pretty straightforward. You might be wondering, okay, well this is an example of one type of log file, but maybe if the log file was had metrics in it, like let's take another example here so we can show you a little variance with the log file structure. All right, so here we've got a log file that contains metrics. So, broke it out in the same fashion. So I'm not going to go through that all again, but this would work as well. All right, now what about Windows events? So let's go back and take a look at that. Just given I can see we're running a little bit shorter on time than I thought we would at this point, but you can do Windows events you can configure them in the same way that we just did. So in that scenario, Windows events are in Splunk, and you just map those across in a similar fashion. You just use the appropriate source and source type mapping over to Splunk. All right. So in addition, of course, kind of moving away from Splunk now, there are lots of other data sources that you can have. Clay mentioned third-party data that we've got integrated in this environment from Dynatrace. So you can take CSV files and with metric data, and you can map those in. I'm going to show you quickly how that looks. So you give your collection a name. In this case, let's call it demo. You're going to pick where your what your OPSA collector host is, and you're going to put a path to the CSV files that are either on the OPSA machine, or you can have you can mount to a Windows share on an external host if you want. So I'm just going to get the path for that. Happen to have right, so you would specify the path to the file, and actually, the example I thought I had maybe I don't have quite ready.
Hey, Jonathan, I'm wondering if, just in the interest of time, if we go back through some of the front end side of it, just because we're going to run out here in a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so let's go back to our dashboard here. All right. So we've got log data coming in from Splunk. We have metric data coming in from Dynatrace via our J9 accelerator. This is an example of one metric, but then you can group a bunch of metrics together and just check off what you want to view in the pane. You can also take Splunk log data and turn that into a metric. So, for example, here there was a log that contained a value for store booking, and it's the amount that in the Easy Travel application that the customer was paying when they would book their travel. And we took that metric and we were able to trend and alert on that over time. So another powerful feature is going to be the correlations. This is one of the killer features that Clay mentioned. So what we've done here is you take a group of measurements like we have here with Dynatrace for easy travel, and you click on this toolbox button and you do correlate, and what happens is it takes all those metrics, automatically puts it into this correlation window, and it does an analysis on which two metrics have similar trends, peaks and valleys, over time for the time specified. So I've got a 4-hour window here, and each one of these that I click on, you know, it's seeing a similar trend. The ones that are higher up in the list have a higher relation of correlation. So average exec time versus total exec time, or failure rate for DTWS agent versus failure rate on customer front end, and so on. So you can see that depending on what types of metrics that you have in a pane, you can take a bunch of them, put them all together, and it will automatically analyze the correlation between them, and you can trend that over time. This down here is just basically another example of taking data that's in a log and then turning it into a metric that you can view over time and represent in different ways, not only in a graph, but also in a pie chart. And there are a number of other ways that you can visualize the data, from a sunburst to a heat chart to bar, line, and table. So different ways to show that. And then let's look at the predictive analytics that Clay mentioned as a killer feature, so we cover this too. Okay, so let's pick these two guys here. And so we've got our metrics. Now we're going to do predict. All right, so you know it's taking that sample of data and predicting for us a time period which is customizable. You know, maybe we want to predict 1 day into the future, or maybe we want to predict 2 weeks based on the data that we're looking at.
I mean, this is really nice because what we see here is, you know, we've got data coming in from both from Splunk, but also this other, you know, from Dynatrace as well. So, you know, what this does for an operator is it means that they don't have to learn every single third-party tool. You know, the analytics gives you, you know, a large enough platform that you don't have to be an expert on Dynatrace or Splunk or any other tool for that matter, as long as you have the analytics on top of it, and the easy, you know, an easy way to combine metrics together into dashboards. It makes it, you know, a lot simpler. You basically have to learn only a subset of tools from a NOC or operator's perspective.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely a very powerful feature. And I just thought of something I didn't really hit on too hard earlier with the log analytics, is that, you know, you can combine not only your logs but also your events. So if you've got, you know, events in OMI, for example, and you want to do some correlation between, you know, the events as well as the logs, you can do that.
I think one of this will maybe the last thing in the last few minutes that we have to go through the log searching and then creation of the dashboard panes and widgets. I think that was just showing how easy it is to create these things.
Sure. Okay, so let's drill back into our significant log messages here, and let's go ahead and search for maybe heap usage, since we talked about that. And let's see, might have to change my time frame so I get the log data here. Okay, sorry, I'm going to just switch tabs because I already actually had this one set up from earlier. But all right, so same pane here. We're looking at log messages for heap usage. Now, notice how we've got these parameters underlined. Ops has basically turned these into parameters. It's recognized the variability that's in this part of the message. So we've got usage, and this number is changing from one message to another, free, and so on. So you can take this log message and say we want to, let's just click on heap usage. Session timed out. Okay. So first thing we're seeing here is the message count over time. I'm going to just, again, click on the heap usage, and we can see how, how often that happened over time, and then we can view it from a pie, or, depending on the data type it is, you can view the data in different visual manners. And then we're going to turn this into a logged metric. So basically have to just give it a message group name that usually relates, to the type of message that you're seeing over time, and then the parameter name. In this case, we're just going to do heap usage, and then you can specify which dashboard that you want to add it to. Maybe we want to add it to our easy travel dashboard, and then do OK. And it's going to automatically add that on there for us. Now let's go back to the dashboard and see how that looks. First, got to find out where it added it.
While Jonathan's adding that, if I could maybe ask a couple of the questions in the background. One of them is, does it receive logs and other messages from other sources other than Splunk? Clay, are you able to answer that?
Does it receive log messages other than Splunk? Yes. Go ahead, Clay.
Yeah, absolutely. So it actually has a built-in way of collecting log messages using underlying logger. It actually uses an ArcSight logger underneath the covers to do log file collection. Once again, there's other capabilities, Logstash, et cetera, that are can also be integrated into OPSA going forward. So there's a lot of different ways to pull in log file data. It doesn't have to just be Splunk. It can be, you can set up OPSA to pull log data directly.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan, how are you getting on?
Sorry, I have no idea what happened to that, but this is what's supposed to happen. Sorry, I guess it's just because I'm doing this live, but essentially it's just going to automatically create one of these panes for you to view that over time. And it will add it to a dashboard, one that's already existing, or you can also create a new one. And you can also manage those metrics over time, those tracked logs and events if you need to manage them later, they're available in this track logs and events configuration pane, where say if you decided you no longer wanted to collect that, you could deactivate it.
So I think given the time frame, I would like to go ahead and kind of move on to some of the Q&A. Maybe we can cover a little bit in that, but if you're okay with that, Jonathan.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one, we are a Splunk customer and have gotten a lot of value out of Splunk's capabilities, but the cost is definitely a major factor. How much of the Splunk data is stored in Ops Analytics, and does HP license in a similar fashion to Splunk?
So yeah, let me take that one. So the as I mentioned before, the data is stored in OPSA at a very nice compressed ratio. So the cost is actually quite a bit less overall. OPSA is licensed such that you're rather than paying per megabyte or per gigabyte or terabyte, you're actually just licensing it per OS instance that you're covering. So the nice thing there is that, as your environment grows, organically, if you're adding servers at a certain predefined rate, then you are more or less, you're covered in terms of your OPSA license. You can continue to throw as much data as you want to because there's a very clear number, growth rate typically in most IT organizations. So the actual cost per value is actually very high, just simply because of the licensing mechanism as well. It's also, relatively cheaper as well than Splunk. So, it's a nice, very nice cost-effective. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the hidden cost of effectively of hardware is a big factor, certainly. So.
Okay, thank you. Another one here. Do you integrate, or does it integrate with Apps Dynamics 2 as well?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So, so we have a product that does integration into a number of different products and APM tools, Dynatrace, App Dynamics, ExtraHop, DC-RUM. Yada yada yada. We've got a number of different integrations there, and part of what we're bringing to the table is the quick time to value in terms of getting those types of data sources plugged into Ops Analytics. So the idea is you can very easily, within hours of getting it set up, you can pull any sort of APM data into Ops Analytics, or if you have BSM is another place we integrate our tools into.
Okay, thank you, Clay. Next one, so does the Ops Analytics server support load balance mode? Anyone?
That's a good question. We do have Victor, who's one of the product managers, on the line, and I think Victor should be able to handle that one.
Yes, this is Victor. The load balancing of operations analytics is done on several levels. The integration, we have load balance on the back end, where we're integrating with where we have the vertical backend. On the front end, we have the integration of the feeds going into the individual collectors, and those feeds will need to be set up separately. So we can discuss in the future deployment layouts and so on and so forth, but lay assured that there will be there is no problem of losing data within your integrated environment.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Another one here, what about directly from devices or through solutions such as NNMI?
guys can feel free to expand on this one as well, but you know, there is direct integration support of devices into Ops Analytics. We actually, this is the proof of concept we just went through. We actually integrated you know, site scope data, NMI data, OM data, a number of different, you know, BPM data, a number of the existing HP native tools can be easily integrated into OPSA, you know, more or less out of the box. With it, I'd say with the same ease, more or less that that Splunk gives you. I don't know, Victor or Jonathan want to expand on that any, but
let me expand a little bit on this. Yes. This is Victor. The out of the box we have integration with the operations management tool set that we have that we're offering from HP. NMI is direct out of the box integration as the other tools that Clay just mentioned. So there is nothing really that needs to be done except to connect to the server, to the NMI server, and from there you're going to get the NMI data. In a similar fashion as was mentioned earlier, we have direct integration out of the box with the other HP tools, and also we have the capability to bring custom data through the collections that that earlier Jonathan showed how easy it is to bring those and configure and have the data flowing into operations analytics. Jonathan?
Yeah, I would agree. You know, we for this presentation, I did configure multiple integrations to, like Clay said, to BPM and the site scope, and it was just a matter of pointing it at the server, and there really wasn't much more than that. So pretty straightforward, easy integration with those tools.
Yep. Brilliant. Just there's one more here. So I can see the value in the analytics for root cause analysis, but what are the other use cases? Can we include external data sources, for example, such as weather, social media?
If there is nobody else, Jonathan, if you want to take this one, or this is Victor again, I can take this one. Up to you.
Sure.
Go ahead, Victor.
All right. Yeah. Operations analytics, one of the big advantages that was demonstrated today was the capability to bring multiple data sources from various types of data that is coming through. It was earlier shown quite extensively the capability to bring logs, but also events can be fed in there, metrics can be fed in there, and also auxiliary non-IT data can be brought in through the custom collections, since the user interface of how to configure a custom collection was also shown, which is as simple as bring those feeds through through a CSV file and map them quickly, their metadata, into the collection, and now you're going to be able to put in one dashboard, big dashboard with multiple graphs on it, various data from multiple sources. And what was not shown today was one example of the ease of combining data from multiple sources. You can just drag and drop metrics from one graph to another and hit the correlation button that was shown earlier to show you the behavior similarity between metrics. And this is extremely powerful way to see the implications of external data to the behavior of your systems or applications that you have under monitoring.
Okay, thank you very much. We're running over by 5 minutes or so. There are a couple of questions outstanding, but what we will do is we'll get those answered, and we will follow those up after the webinar. Just a couple of other things. HP Discover is coming up the 1st to the 3rd of December, so it's in couple of months. There's a registration link now for Vivit, and I believe there's a discount included on that. And we'd love you to come along to some of the Vivit breakout sessions and to the Vivit stand and come and have a chat with us. We'd love to see you. It's my hometown, so you know, make yourselves come and meet up. And I think on that, it's up to me just to say a big thank you to the team from J9 Technologies and to the team from HP and from Vivit for a superb webinar. There is a link here. There's a survey which you will get at the end of the webinar. You complete the survey and opt in for more information from J9, and there's a chance to win a Fitbit Surge. So that's an advantage all round. So thank you very much, everybody. Jonathan, Clay, Victor, is anything to add from yourselves?
No, I think we're good. Thanks a lot for the time, everybody, and thanks for sharing the hour.
Thank you very much.